Well, hello everybody, it's Papa. I hope you're doing well. I have a book I'd like to read to you today, and I hope you enjoy it. It's about a very famous person who lived a long time ago. But I also wanted you to see, let me flip this thing around. If you look outside, you can see our orange tree. And over here you can see our lemon tree. Do you see some lemons on it? And over here, we've been eating plenty of lemons and oranges. In fact, the orange bowl used to be huge, and we keep eating oranges. And there's lots and lots and lots that we've been eating. So, fun, fun, fun. Our trees. Can you see the lemons on that tree? Do you see any? Let me open this up. There, maybe that's easier. Can you see some of the lemons? They're all over that tree still. And our oranges, Grandma's been picking the oranges. And I think she's gotten a lot of them off of that. We also gave some away, so. Anyway, just wanted you to see what was going on. Well, I hope you guys are doing great. We haven't seen you for a while, but things are going good. And the weather's good. We're getting ready to go up to the cabin for my birthday is coming up. And so next week we're going to go up and enjoy that. And it's supposed to have a chance of snow up there, even though it's pretty warm here today. It's about 70 degrees. And so I rode, this is what I used, this is without the hat. I rode my bike today and I just had a t-shirt. So I hope you guys are doing good. And like to say hi to Lily and Levi and Parker and Gemma and Lucy and Evie. And of course, Davis and Sarah and Jake. I don't know if they really watch this, but they might. And then we have Isaac and Elise and Caleb and Laura and Janae. And I want to make sure I got it right with Lucy, with Parker and Gemma and Lucy. And so, and Chip. Oh my gosh, all the dogs we've got. And Sunny. I hope the dogs are doing good. Well, let's get started. This is a book that says Henry Builds a Cabin. And so that's Henry Builds a Cabin. Maybe some of you would like to build a cabin all by yourself, huh? Let's see. One spring day, Henry decided to build a cabin. Look at him, he's getting his ideas together, see the plans. Look at that, he's gonna have a bed and a desk and a fireplace. And so he's thinking about how to build a cabin. He borrowed an axe and cut down 12 trees. Can you count to 12? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's how many trees he cut down. Can you see him swinging the axe and chipping through the tree so it'll fall over? Henry cut the logs into square beams. The problem is trees are round, and sometimes when we build, we want the wood to be square. So he had to peel it and cut it and shape it. Instead of round trees, he ended up with square. He notched the bottom beams to fit into corner posts. The corner posts fit into ceiling beams, and the ceiling beams fit into the roof beams. So you see how he made the bottom of this? Can you see how he made a notch, and then he makes a notch in the next piece? And that's how some of the pieces fit together. Back then, they used to shape the wood so it would sort of fit together. Now we use a lot of nails and other things, but back then they used to fit them together, and so they'd sort of cut the wood into shape so they'd fit together. And that would help make them stronger. They'd still use some nails, but nails were harder to get to back then. And so they hadn't quite invented good nails. They had them, but they were sort of expensive. And in April, his friend Emerson helped raise the beams. The work made him hungry. And so there they are. They were putting together some of the beams, but they got hungry. Henry, he said, your cabin looks too small to eat in. And Henry said, well, it's bigger than it looks. So there's his friend, and they're trying to put together some of the beams. Do you see the ends of the beams, how they have little notches and the pegs? Yep. Oh, that cabin doesn't look real big right now, but they're working on it. And so they ended up building or starting to put the big beams together. And he led his friend to a bean patch he had planted behind the cabin. So when they got hungry, and look at the beams they're putting up. This is like the structure for the cabin, just the outside. And so they're walking over, and he said, when it's all finished, this will be my dining room. And they went outside to where all the beans were, and he said, this is where we will eat. So he was thinking they wouldn't eat inside, they'd eat outside. And so he had a nice big garden, and that's where they would eat. In May, Henry bought an old shed and took it apart. Look at that, he's bringing home a shed with some stuff in it, and he took all the pieces. Do you see a window? He's got sort of a big cart. It's like a pickup truck that you pull. And look at the window and some of the other pieces of wood. He nailed the boards on the floor and the roof and the walls of the cabin. So you can see the cabin starting to come together. And you see he's got a hammer. And there's some of all the different things. Do you see a couple of windows? Can you find the windows and the boards? He's building a cabin. Ho, ho, ho. Henry was nailing the last board on when his friend Alcott arrived. Here's Alcott. There's Alcott. He showed up, wanted to see what was going on, and Henry was just finishing up. Henry said, your cabin looks too dark to read in. And Henry said, well, it's brighter than it looks. Yeah. So his friend was saying, it's sort of a dark cabin. Henry said, it doesn't really matter. It's brighter than it looks. And he led his friend to a sunny spot beside the cabin. Look at how bright it is over there. And he said, when it's finished, this will be my library. Look at that. So, Henry didn't care that his cabin was a little bit dark. He said he's going to be outside most of the time. Well, in June, Henry put a door in front. Then he put 2 used windows in the side walls. So now he's finishing up by putting on a door, and he's putting on some windows. Do you see the window? Yeah, look at that. He bought old shingles for the roof and the walls. Sounds like he bought a lot of used things so he could reuse them. And there's some shingles, a whole pile of them. And he's going to use those to help get the house looking good. Henry was nailing the last shingle on when Miss Lydia peeked in the window. Look at the cabin. It's starting to look pretty nice. Do you see the front door? Do you see a side window? Do you see him with a hammer in his hand right there? And do you see the shingles on the roof? Henry, she said, your cabin looks too small to dance in. And Henry said, well, It's bigger than it looks. She went inside and she was sort of walking around. And so she came in through the open door and she was just saying it doesn't look big enough to dance in. And he led her to the front door of the cabin where a path curved down to the pond. So there's his cabin. Do you see it starting to look better? And he took her down a path and he said, when it's finished, this will be the ballroom with a grand stairway. And look at him. He's saying, this will be where I dance. Wow. On the 4th of July, do you remember what happens on the 4th of July? We have our big fireworks and stuff, and it's our birthday for our country. Henry moved into his cabin. And so look, he's got his cart, and he's got a chair and a desk in his cart. Do you see that? And he's hauling in some stuff. And so he's putting all his furniture into the cabin. There's his desk and a chair. It looks like a bed frame is coming in so he can sleep. Oh, and on there is a book and on his desk. And do you see the pencil and the pen? And he's writing a list of things he needs to bring into the cabin. He ate beans in his dining room. So he's outside. Look at him leaning out the window. And he's eating the beans from his garden. He read in his library. So he went outside where that nice warm spot was. And he did his reading there. And look, a little chipmunk is on his shoulder. And let's see what else we find. And he danced down the grand stairway to the pond. And look at him. He's playing with a fiddle. That's where you blow into it and you can make different noises. And look at all the stepping stones on the path. Do you see the stepping stones? And he's having a grand old time. When it started to rain, Henry ran back to his cabin. Look at him. He's up. The rain is coming and he's running back to the cabin. And that'll make it nice for him. It's bigger than it looks, he said. This is just the room I wear when it's raining. So he was pretending to show he can fit in his house and he can enjoy everything because he uses outside and the inside to make the cabin make sense. And then it ends with a picture of his toolbox and his axes. Do you see anything in there? Do you see saws and hammers? Tape measure. He had things that he did. Now, the interesting thing about this story is it's sort of a real story. It's about Henry Thoreau, and he is a real person. And he lived a long time ago in Massachusetts, about 150 years ago, it says. And they actually have a list from him of all the things that went into the cabin and how much they cost. Do you know the entire cabin cost $28.12? And he spent $8 on boards. He spent $4 on shingles. Remember, he got used shingles. And then little boards, he spent $1.25. And then he found 2 windows for a total of $2.43. And then he bought 1,000 bricks, but they were used. And those 1,000 bricks cost him $4. And then he had to buy some lime and hair. That's weird, go buy hair. But he had to buy lime and hair, and you mix that up to make like a plaster. And a plaster is something you can put on the walls, sort of like a weird paint. And then he had a mantle tree iron that he paid 15 cents for. And then nails. I told you nails used to be pretty expensive. He paid $3.90 for nails. That's pretty expensive for what he was doing. And then he had hinges and screws for 14 cents. And he had a lock or a latch for a dime, 10 cents. He had some transportation costs for $1.41. So the actual cabin was in a remote area called Walden Pond, and it was 10 feet wide by 15 feet long. You may want to measure how big is 10 feet wide by 15 feet long. It's not as small as they were saying in here, but it's pretty small for a whole house. So his whole house could probably fit in any of your living rooms. His whole house. And so he always told people that he had more than he needed. And you know what he did? He was an author. He wrote books. And he liked to go to his cabin where he wouldn't be distracted by so many different things, and he could just sit out in nature and watch the birds and the animals and the flowers blossoming. And so he became a famous author with the books he wrote. And he said it was because of his wonderful cabin that helped him see things that were really important. And he became a famous writer. And his cabin was sort of famous. And so this book is about Henry building his own cabin, and then he became a famous writer with famous books. And he lived a long time ago. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the story about Henry builds a cabin. I love you, and I hope you have a great day. And it's good. You can send me Marco Polos. I'll listen to them. And I want to say I love you and bye-bye. And remember, I love you so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great day.